WickedCossack here. So I'm going to do another analysis of a game from my series in the latest ESOC tournament against H2O. The first video, in case you haven't seen it, should be somewhere on this channel, so do check that out. Anyways, this game is a Portuguese mirror on ESOC Arizona, and so first things first, I think we should talk a little bit about spyglasses. So you can see I put my spyglass down actually pretty close to my explorer, and what this does is it allows me to manipulate my scouting pattern and discovery as efficiently as possible, as if my spyglass sees something useful, which this time it didn't, but if it did I can kind of immediately go there, or alternately just avoid the area as I'm doing now if it's not useful. Oftentimes you'll just see people throwing a spyglass on the opposite side of the map, which I feel is a little bit of a waste, as what happens if you actually see a good treasure? Do you then waste a minute trekking your explorer across the map to the treasure? Well, you don't really want to do that, so the idea is that you can act far quicker on the information close to your explorer, hence it's more valuable. So always try and place your spyglasses near your explorer, but not necessarily in the exact direction which he's headed. You can see here I picked up a Cherokee Rifleman, which I was really pleased to see, particularly so in this matchup, because what happens often in the Portuguese mirror is during the transition up to the colonial age, both players will try and use their explorers and possibly even villages to try and claim as many trading sites as they can, even using the advanced trading post card, which we both send, just because it's so essential. It makes them cheaper, which means you can get them up quicker, gives them a bit more hit points. But if your explorer is low HP or even dies, it makes it a lot harder to try and get those trading sites up. So I'm going to kind of try and use my Cherokee Rifleman to get as much damage done on H2O's explorer, and try and zone him out a bit to see if I can use that to get myself a trading site advantage going further into the game. So the importance of the trading post is also one of the reasons why I chose not to start off with a market in age 1, as sometimes you would do with many civs starting off with the coin crate, and I believe he's chosen to do the same thing, and that's just because building that market in age 1 while getting a slightly better economy is just going to delay you getting up these trading post sites. And because we both send advanced trading posts, once the trading post is up, it's really hard to get down. In case you're wondering why the trading posts are so important, it's because Portugal is predominantly a semi-fast fortress civilization, so that means you intend to get up to the fortress stage fairly fast and then send out those big shipments which are worth roughly about 1,000 resources. So spending, I'd say, 125 wood on a trading post early on is nothing when you can pump out 1,000 resource shipments really quickly later on. So there's the Cherokee Rifleman kind of patrolling the trading post site, maybe seeing if I can find his explorer. You can see I moved every single one of my villages onto wood. There's one on food, but basically I'm trying to make sure I get these trading post sites up as soon as possible. And there we go. I find his explorer, which is really nice. He's kind of been forced to this rightmost explorer because he knows that he doesn't have too much health, and he knows that I've got that Cherokee Rifleman. So he chose not to go for one of the middle trading post sites first. And this is going to be a little bit of a problem for him because he's been forced onto the outer trading post. That means he's only got one direction he could head in, which is left. And it just so happens that I've got the trading post which is to the left of him. So the trading post I took gives more options, as I can either go left or right, and you can spyglass the trading post sites to find out if you need to go left or right. So it puts me in a good position to at least get a second trading post. Whereas now it's not looking in a good situation for him to try and get a second trading post. He either has to send a villager or run his explorer all the way from one side of the map to the other. And it's quite low HP as well, and I've got a Cherokee Rifleman. So I'm feeling in a really good position at the moment. So at this point I wasn't completely decided on my strategy. Usually there's two main things you can do, semi-FF with Hussars or semi-FF with Musketeers. And my Cherokee Rifleman immediately scouts he's going Musketeers, which suddenly opens up a third option for me, which I hadn't at all practiced, and I wasn't sure about whether I should take it or not. But that's kind of just the straight fast fortress, which you never really see. But if you notice, both our explorers are racing to the third teepee. I hadn't intended to take this at all because it doesn't fit into my semi-FF build because I gathered exactly the right amount of wood for either a hussar or musketeer semi-FF. And so by taking this trading post site, I can no longer do that unless I ship 700 wood, but I already have 700 coin on the way. So, but I kind of decide to risk it and think maybe I can just quickly get up to the fortress age because I know he hasn't gone hussars, which is nice. So I know he can't idle my villagers for a bit, and I know also because of his racks placement and he's gone muskets. He's going to spend a while sieging down that advanced trading post, which I mentioned earlier has a lot more hit points. So that's just going to buy me a lot of time. So kind of all these factors considered in, and I've got the third TP. I feel like maybe I can risk trying to get up to fortress really fast. But I was kind of unsure how it was going to work out, but it seemed like a sensible thing to do at the time. So 700 food is on the way, and it's not the most common of cards to really ship at this point, but I know I've got a really small window to try and get up without taking as much damage as I can, and 700 food is one of the cards that you can use to try and get up to fortress really fast. And plus, I know I've got 3 TPs, he's only got 1, so I know I'm actually going to be a shipment ahead. So I can actually afford to send something like 700 food, which isn't normally as valuable as many other cards, as food is the resource that gathers the fastest. Looks like the plan is going smoothly so far. You can see he was just sieging my trading post. It looks like he's got about 10 musketeers, maybe a few more. I noticed he actually moved the injured musketeer that was being targeted by the trading post away. I didn't retarget that. I probably should have done, but that was a nice move by him. But yep, so I just got enough resources now to get up to the fortress stage, and I'm going to use the fast age up as speed is kind of key right now. I've also got 700 wood on the way, and that's just thanks to having those 3 trading posts. I was thinking of potentially waiting for 1000 wood to ship in the fortress age, which is I would have only had to wait maybe 20 seconds longer, but I'm so worried of him just coming in my base right now, and I don't have any structures. All I've got is houses, so I really need the wood as soon as possible. Even if it's 300 less, I kind of need to get up my infrastructure as soon as possible. So that's why I choose to ship that instead of the 1000 wood. And here he comes in with the muskets, so I garrison some of my villages. But notice, not all the villages get garrisoned. That's the worst thing if your entire economy gets garrisoned. So I tried to hide some of my villages, which kind of worked. It's a bit risky, I suppose, for him to push in too much. And so they can gather. The 700 wood goes to my second town centre, which is nice. My third town centre comes out at my second town centre, which is really handy so it doesn't get picked off. And also notice that I position it to secure another hunt on his side of the map, so I'm gaining some really nice map control just because of this really fast age up. So he does get a house, but not much more than that. He's kind of forced back for a bit. Now time is really of the essence here, as my entire strategy getting the 3 trading posts early on has been pretty much leading up to finding this small window of say about a minute and a half of where I'm in the fortress age and he's still in the colonial age. So I've kind of got to make something happen in this small window. So you can see I put my barracks and stables up, and they go up at the second town centres. So the idea is that they're closer to his base, so I can start putting on the pressure as soon as possible. I ship a military unit shipment, so we got 8 Castadors on the way. And hopefully we should get some damage done with the fortress age unit shipments against his colonial army, basically musketeers, which are not very good against a kind of skirmisher dragoon composition. So the first batch of Castadors is just about to pop, and they're rallied right into his base. I've got my explorer, so I'm kind of going to send that in just to scout out what's ahead. The 8 Castadors arrive at the third town centre. And yep, so we find a villager, and you can see his villager, he recognizes immediately that I'm coming, even though he's only seen my explorer at this point. He knows that because of my explorers there, that units are on the way. So I'm just looking around for maybe any loose kind of villagers that I'll pick off with the long range of the Castadors. Unfortunately, there aren't any, so I just target down his explorer. At the same time, it's a nice move by him. He sends musketeers into my base, and he calls Minutemen to defend his own base. I call Minutemen to defend my base. Oh, and this was cool by him as well. He actually spent 100 gold to get his Explorer back and try and snare my Castadors under his Minutemen, but for some reason his Explorer got stuck in the trees. So all that happened was I just got an extra 100 gold. So it was a nice try, but that just worked out well for me. So here my Minutemen are just trying to deal with his musketeers, but he's still got a lot more musketeers than I have. So I'm going to need to use my Dragoons to try and clear that up. And at this point I was hoping I was going to get more damage done, as all I did really was garrison some of his villages. But he's done the same to me. You can see my town centers got some villages garrisoned. The main thing I still have going for me though is just that position of that third town centre that's claimed one of his coin mines and one of his hunts, which means that if the game kind of just carries on at a stalemate, then I'm just going to win out just because I've claimed more resources than he has, and that was just because I got up to the Fortress Age faster. So you can see just a nice little bit of micro. I moved the Dragoon, which is getting focus fired, back a little bit, which just saves me an extra unit. I still probably have a slightly bigger army than he does, but only maybe for the next few seconds. So that's why I'm going to try and push in and see if we can get maybe a bit more damage done that I would have liked to have got done on the first push. But anyway, so I've split up my Dragoons and Castadors to try and maybe get him out of position. So my Dragoons here pick up a villager, which is really nice, but and yeah, maybe another one actually. But the really useful thing is it's kind of distracted him from the Castador raid. Castador raids aren't that common, I suppose, so maybe he wasn't expecting it, but the Castadors pick up 3 villagers, which is really nice, and then just head on out. So at this point I'm feeling pretty good, and I've taken a slight advantage in the game. I think this was probably my first big mistake, which I've got 7 Castadors on the way, which isn't necessarily that good of a unit shipment, but the idea is when you ship a unit shipment, it's either because you know the other guy's going to push and you need to defend, or if you're going to make a push yourself. So I guess I was thinking that I wanted to push, which can kind of be hard in a mirror. So I'm not entirely sure why I'm sending this, but at the same time I think he's sending, say, 1,000 wood, which would kind of be the ideal shipment that you want to send, as you can get up maybe an arsenal, more production, and the 1,000 wood is just worth so many more resources if you can get away with it. So I've probably got an army advantage right now, but for some reason the army's kind of back in my base. Maybe I'm going to try and poke a bit with it, but no, you can see here I just turn around. So I think this was probably a big mistake on my part, that I've shipped 7 Castadors, but I'm not actually doing anything with them right now. Yeah, so I think what kind of happens now is that our armies just spend the next few minutes kind of diligently patrolling our bases rather than doing anything, and that's kind of just the nature of this matchup, because it's so hard to push into a town centre fortified position. As I mean, there's 6 town centres on the map right now, and the issue with pushing into town centres is that there's a potential for the enemy to call Minutemen. There's potential for a unit shipment to pop out of the town centre, and usually you'll be closer to your enemy's reinforcement points, so their barracks and their stables, so their reinforcements are going to get there earlier. And kind of all those factors mean that it's just kind of hard to push. So our armies kind of just stay in the base. You can see I'm kind of moving around the coin mines a little bit, just checking if there's any villages on the coin mines with my Dragoons, but there isn't. So the army's just going to sit in the base, and yeah, that's the same for him. And so we're gonna boom away. And this is kind of the situation where 1,000 would have been useful as the previous card, as I could have got up an arsenal. I did, however, ship 1,000 coin, which is that is a good shipment kind of to ship in this situation, as it's just going to allow me to build either a lot of army or opens up the potential to ship the Mamelukes, which is kind of what I'm going for right now. You can see now that I've collected up my coin, I'm banking a ton of coin, At the moment, I'm just waiting on getting enough XP so I can ship out the Mamelukes. You have to bear in mind, though, this is the ESOC patch, so the Mameluke shipment, unfortunately, you only get 4 Mamelukes, and that's just because Mamelukes, they're a really strong unit, so it was deemed that the 5 Mamelukes are perhaps a bit imbalanced. So I'm only going to get 4 Mamelukes, but I decide that they're still such a good unit that I'm going to get them anyway. I did build my arsenal in the meantime, so I'm actually getting cavalry HP, so my Mamelukes, even though there's only 4, they're going to be really strong. And I'm going to try and supplement them a bit with hussars, so they can't just they can't completely get focused down by themselves. So normally in these kind of late game fortress scenarios, it's really hard to add hand cavalry, as you need a critical mass of hand cavalry to make them useful. As if you can imagine, if you've only got, say, 5 hussars, when they charge in, they don't actually do anything because the enemy dragoons will just take them all out in a single volley. So you actually need more than kind of 5 hussars, so that when they die, some of your hussars can actually make it to the front lines without being killed. And so kind of the Mamelukes allows me to do this, as there's no way the Mamelukes are going to drop in one volley. They take so many volleys to drop. So because I'm shipping the Mamelukes, I decide, well, actually this opens up the opportunity to add hussars. So I think that's an okay decision to make. It just means that when we do take the fight, that I've got to take it in an open area, so away from any trees or anything that may cause pathing issues for my hand cavalry. He probably would have been aware as well that I was shipping Mamelukes, as when you ship them, because you have to spend 1,000 coin, if you're paying attention to the scores in the top right, you'll notice your enemy, if they ship Mamelukes, they get a big score drop. So you can just tell if you're kind of paying attention to the scores, and I expect he probably was. He would have known at this point Mamelukes were on the field, so that might influence any decisions that he's going to make in the next few minutes. But he's also poking around my coin mines on the bottom right. Luckily I didn't have any villagers there, partly due to the fact that you can see my villagers are on his coin mine, so that's still going well for me. But at this point we're starting to get really big armies, and almost to the point where we'll be maxing out at 200 population. Another mistake on my part is that I didn't research counter infantry rifling at the arsenal, which normally in this matchup makes no difference, but for a period of about 2 or 3 weeks on the ESOC patch, which during this time this game was played in, it means your Cassadors do a lot more damage to dragoons, and so that's kind of an upgrade he has at the moment, but for whatever reason I don't have. But you can see, now when they're in max population, I'm pretty much 200, he's probably the same. He's decided to push into my town centre. So he's gone for more of a standard composition, split 50-50 between Cassadors and Dragoons. And so here you can see we're going to take the fight. And if you remember what I said earlier about my unit composition isn't good for fighting in trees, I mean, you can see my Cassadors are just pathing awfully around there. So I kind of made this bad decision to take this critical fight in a bad place for me. But it's not a fight I can really back out of. When you've got hand cavalry, you just lose so many units if you decide to retreat. So I've kind of committed to the fight, and so I've decided, well, I've got to stay here. I'm thinking, okay, maybe it's actually not going too badly now. As you can see, I've got a few, my Mamelukes, there's 2 of them, or only 1 of them still left alive, but it's looking like our armies are balancing out, and maybe I've got a bit of a lead here even. You see it, maybe 2 more hussars coming in. I'm thinking for a brief second this is going quite well. I've got Minutemen as well. I'm just pretty much trying to call everything. And what I probably don't notice is, you can see he's actually focusing down my Dragoons, and then his Mamelukes come in from the side. And for whatever reason I just wasn't thinking that he was going to ship Mamelukes, which makes no sense because of course I've just shipped Mamelukes, so obviously he'll probably ship Mamelukes. But as you can see, I've just got no anti-cavalry, I've got no hussars, I've just got nothing. So even though our armies were maybe pretty even, all I've got is 30 or so Cassadors that are just going to get mullered by these Mamelukes. So I'm kind of just trying to pull everything. I got villagers coming in. I mean, they don't do much damage, right? But anything to tank is going to help at this point. So there's no way back for me, unfortunately, and that one fight kind of decided the game. So I felt a bit disappointed by this game, as I thought I'd played the first maybe 10-12 minutes quite well, and then made, I'd say the 7 castles was a bad decision, and kind of taking this fight in a poor location was a bad decision, and that pretty much cost me the game here. But I thought it was still a really interesting game to kind of look at and analyse some of the different strategies and where it went wrong. So I hope you enjoyed this, and thanks.